Alright guys, here we go again. We have another video on router bits, but this time it's about carving artwork. So stick with us and see what we do.
Alright guys, so the first is the carving liner. Now, the carving liner is great for small stuff, like our tiger template that we're carving here.
You call that a tiger?
There's a lot of really small lines, really fine detail. The carving liner is great because it's such a fine tip bit. Again, just like doing wording, you want to make sure not to go too deep. About 1/8 of an inch is as deep as you want to go with one pass. Because this thing is so fine and does such nice fine detail, the tip will break off if you try to go too deep. The sharp points in artwork, when you get to nice like fine sharp points, whether it's the fur on the tiger or feathers on an eagle or whatever you're doing, that's where this bit really shines, because you get that fine point instead of a rounded point like you would get with the profile bit.
So now we're going to talk about the profile bit. The good thing about the profile bit, it's so versatile that you can cut inset lines and outset lines, and they can be very fine lines, like for instance on the Peking buck.
Buck melanoma, Molly Russell's wart.
You can still, because it does come to a point, you can still move that router and get those sharp points on the horns of the Peking buck. So I used the profile bit on the fat camper as well.
I'm just a happy camper.
I just followed around the outside of the line, and I was going probably 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch because I had plenty of room all the way around. But yet in the wheel well around the tire, you can see I did lift a little bit and was able to get a sharp point right around the wheel well. So it's a very versatile bit. You can do so much with the profile bit.
So the next bit is the 60-degree bit. And again, this is a 3-flute bit, and again, you want to make sure not to go too deep. 3/16 is about as deep as you can go, because otherwise you're going to end up burning, because you're actually sinking the bit deeper than the flutes are cutting. So when you have artwork that have more rounded edges, like these puppy paws and this heart here.
Heart? You have a heart?
You don't have to use a fine tip bit like the profile or the carving liner. The 60-degree will take out a nice wide cut. You'll actually get to do it a lot faster with stuff like this using the 60 as opposed to the profile bit. But it's still a little bit finer than, say, the 90-degree. So it's right in between the profile and the 90-degree. You can take out a nice wide cut, but it's not so wide that you're going to be all over the place. So the other thing you can do with the 60-degree is if you have some background to do, like in the Peking buck, I had to take out some wood, but I didn't have a whole lot of room. The 90-degree takes a wider cut, so it was a little dangerous to put that in there and not nick anything. So the 60-degree works good too, but just know if you have a big piece where you need to remove a lot of wood, the 90 works a lot better.
So next on the list is the 90-degree bit. Now this one primarily is used for background. As you've seen in our other video, you can also use it for big inset letters. But this one, it really is primarily used for the background. That's what we did in the doorway of the camper. It's not a big area, but it's still big enough that that 90-degree bit did a great texture on the inside of that doorway. Then I also used it to expand the line on the outside of the camper. I just followed with the 90 all the way around the outside of the line that I did when I was using the profile bit, and it makes that fat camper just stand out that much more. Just gives it a really good frame.
So the 1/8" spiral, not a whole lot to do with that when it comes to artwork. However, like in the window of the fat camper, there was kind of a close line around the edge where I carved with a profile, and I wanted that to be a flat background. So I used the 1/8" spiral upcut just to widen that line a little bit, and then I could get in there with the 1/4 inch. So when it comes to artwork, the 1/4 inch spiral is really good. It's really your main choice if you want a flat background. We really like the textured background, but there's times where you want it to be flat. It just would look better depending on what artwork you're doing. So you want to make sure that you have enough room which is why I went with the 1/8 inch first. And then once you have the room where you're not going to nick your lines that you need straight, you take the 1/4 inch and you can go in, and it just takes a ton of wood out and makes a nice flat background. Alright guys, so that's pretty much the basics when it comes to what bits to use for which artwork. Now, I'll put a link in the description below for all the router bits that we used and also all the templates that we used.
So again, this is kind of a replacement, an updated version of 406, which I did several years ago. That's video 406. But I think this one is a lot more comprehensive. We dived in deeper. That's why we did a separate one for lettering and a separate one for artwork. And I think it gives you a much better idea, because even with that other video, we were still getting questions on which bits to use. So hopefully this was helpful. Thanks again for watching. And if you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to subscribe. Click that little bell icon. And if you have any questions, Eric@makeawwoodsign.com
or Ryan@makeawwoodsign.com. And we're happy to help, guys. So if you have questions, feel free to shoot us an email.
All right, guys, that's it. We love you. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.